Part 3, Chapter 18 of Short History of the Christian Church by John Fletcher Hurst. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 18, Survey of Results. The fruits of the Reformation are not difficult to find. Hitherto there had been but little liberty granted the common people. They were oppressed both civilly and ecclesiastically, and all the political convulsions were of little fruit for them. The Hanse, or free cities, constituted a confederation of powerful centres, extending from the North Sea down to the Alps. They arose as a reaction against despotic measures, but no sooner did they gain independence than they were as repressive as their masters had been. The effect of the Reformation was to elevate the people to a thirst for liberty and a higher and purer citizenship. Wherever the Protestant cause extended, it made the masses more self-asserting. Social respect and order were introduced, and subjected to firm regulation. Nations were taught a higher regard for each other's rights, and kings learned that their subjects were no longer mere playthings or serfs. In some countries the aspiration for independence took organized shape. The Reformation became the mother of republics. The Dutch Republic was born of the efforts of the Protestants of the Netherlands to secure liberty of conscience. No thought of civil independence animated the Dutch at the outset. They simply fought for liberty of doctrine and worship. But once in the current, they were carried on. They builded more wisely than they knew, and so founded a nation whose commerce covered every sea, whose discoveries reached the Antipodes, and whose universities became the pride and wonder of Europe. The American Union owes a large measure of its genesis to the European struggle for reform. The Germans who came with Penn to this country were strongly attached to the doctrines of Luther, and immediately began to build churches and establish schools in that interest. The Dutch who settled in New York and the adjacent country brought with them a fervent love of Protestantism, which had been the creative force of their nation at home, and which their fathers had bought at the price of their treasure and blood. The Swedes of New Jersey and Delaware were animated with the same attachment which they had enjoyed in Scandinavia. The Huguenots, who came here and settled in many places along the coast, from Massachusetts down to Georgia, found that safe asylum which was denied them at home because of their fidelity to their conscience. The Pilgrims who came over in the Mayflower, and became the strongest nucleus in the development of our northern colonies, were fugitives from oppression in their native England. All these elements, the finest wheat from the trampled harvest fields of Europe, combined on these shores and became a unit in this western planting of evangelical Christianity. Villers says with truth, after speaking of the debt which the United States owes to the Reformation, "Powerful republics are based on the Reformation. Republican principles, more powerful than weapons of steel, have been introduced among all nations. Great revolutions have come from this source, and those yet to come are innumerable." The promotion of learning was not the least benefit conferred upon the world by the Reformation. Cultured men were its first advocates. The universities were the cradles of Protestantism. Wherever superstition and other abnormal tendencies appeared, the Reformers promptly rebuked them. The translation of the Scriptures had the effect to formulate and solidify the languages as no other literary movement had been able to do. Wycliffe's Bible preserved the Saxon tongue, and our Authorized Version, or King James's Version, shows its constant dependence upon his translation. Luther found the German a mere conglomeration of rude and coarse dialects, and in his translation of the Bible he grouped the best and purest idioms, and for the first time made the German language a unit. Universities sprang up throughout Germany as an immediate fruit of the Reformation. The University of Leyden was the first creation of the new nation which was born after the siege of that city was raised and the Spanish troops left the land. Not until now, and only as a fruit of the Reformation, was the gospel generally preached in the popular language. When Olympadius, in 1522, began to preach in German, in the castle of Franz von Sickingen, even the friends of the Reform regarded it as a dangerous procedure. His friend, Caspar Hedio, for example, thought it hurrying matters too rapidly. In 1515, Leo X. issued his prohibition against the printing and publication of all books translated from the Greek, the Hebrew, and the Arabic languages. But when the Reformation was once in progress, the printing press was free. The study of all the languages became a new fascination, which no edict could destroy. Public schools were introduced, though crudely at first, in Germany, directly through Luther's labors. The intermediate schools, between the lower and highest education, were established. The German gymnasium of our times owes its real origin to the period of the Reformation. During the centuries since the Reformation, over 20 universities, 3/4 of which are Protestant, have been founded in Germany alone. Holland has built up, in addition to the University of Leyden, 5 other universities, and all are the direct result of her Protestantism. Everywhere where the Reformation triumphed and became a permanent force, the cause of education, good morals, and political liberty advanced securely and rapidly. End of chapter 18.